Good morning. It is so great to be here virtually with you all today. Children's Health is proud to continue to support the Chamber's annual Mayor's Address this year as a gold sponsor. As you can see, we're not at our usual gathering space, as 2020 brought the unimaginable to our country and the world. Frontline workers, first responders, and healthcare heroes have fought tirelessly to ensure the health and safety of our communities. And we at Children's Health continue to do just that for our pediatric population. We're the leading pediatric healthcare system in North Texas and one of the largest pediatric healthcare providers in the nation. A private not-for-profit organization, Children's Health is anchored by 2 full-service hospitals and 1 specialty hospital. In addition, Children's Health is affiliated with UT Southwestern as the official pediatric teaching hospital for the medical school. This provides families with access to world-renowned medical faculty and transformative biomedical research to help us in our mission to make life better for children. But we cannot do this alone. We need partners and supporters like the North Dallas Chamber and the City of Dallas to ensure we have the avenues to share our resources, but also find ways you can help join in our mission. So again, thank you to the North Dallas Chamber for the opportunity to be part of this very important conversation this morning. And of course, today's program would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Our gold sponsors, Children's Health and Dallas Business Journal. Our silver sponsors, Atmos Energy, Jacobs, and Encore. And our supporting sponsors, ACOM, Comerica Bank, Dannenbaum Engineering, Hewitt Zollers, and Texas Instruments. We would also like to thank our collaborating partners, North Texas Commission, Metroplex Mayors Association, and the Mayor's Star Council. And now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our special guest this morning. Our moderator, Bob Pragada, is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Jacobs. Jacobs delivers solutions for a range of end markets, including space exploration and technological development, defense, utilities, nuclear, transportation, water, and cybersecurity. These markets span a geography that encompasses the Americas, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. Prior to joining Jacobs, Bob served as an officer in the U.S. Navy Civil Engineer Corps for 9 years, where he rose to the rank of the lieutenant commander. Bob's naval career has many highlights, among which was his time serving the President of the United States as the facilities director at Camp David. Bob earned a Bachelor's of Science in Systems Engineering through the United States Naval Academy and a Master of Science in Engineering and Management from Stanford University. Outside work, Bob is an avid sportsman and fan and loves going to any game of any sport with his wife, Jessica, and their 2 sons. I'm honored to introduce Mayor Eric Johnson, elected as mayor of Dallas in June 2019. He was born in Dallas, Texas in 1975 to working class parents and raised in West Dallas and Oak Cliff. He attended Dallas Independent School District schools through his 1st grade before earning a scholarship to Green Hill School through the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Dallas. After graduating high school, Mayor Johnson earned his undergraduate degree with honors from Harvard University before earning a graduate degree from Princeton University and a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Mayor Johnson has been a practicing lawyer in Dallas for over 15 years. He's a former member of the Texas House of Representatives, where he represented Dallas from 2010 to 2019. Mayor Johnson and his wife, Nikki, have 2 sons, William and George, and a member of Mountain View Church of Christ. Welcome, Mr. Pragada and Mayor Eric Johnson.
Am I going first, or is
I wasn't sure, Mr. Mayor. I think you're first.
Okay, wonderful. I didn't want to step on your toes there. Thank you so much.
I was worried about the same thing.
All right there. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you virtually today. I remember this event back in 2020. And it was actually one of the final in-person addresses I gave last year, and it came just a few months after that horrible EF3 tornado that ravaged y'all's neighborhood right there where the Chamber's office is in North Dallas. Well, here we are, and we're quickly coming up on a year into that, into a disaster of a different magnitude, but a disaster nonetheless, a global pandemic that's devastated lives and livelihoods across our city and our country. And while I wish we could all just move forward and be together today, it's so important, and I can't stress enough, that we have to continue to stay safe and stay healthy. Some of you might have battled COVID-19 yourself or you know someone who did. And I know all of you understand how serious this virus can be and how important it is for us to emerge from this pandemic and get everyone vaccinated so we can get back to normal. So I'm going to try to keep my remarks today brief so I can answer some questions that you might have and give you an update on our COVID-19 vaccine rollout at the city. You're probably wondering if you're like most people, when you, if you have not already, or your loved ones can get the vaccine. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I don't have that answer for you. We are all waiting on the federal and state government and the vaccine providers to get us more supply. But there is some good news. This week, the city of Dallas is going to begin distributing COVID-19 vaccines to the public. Previously, the city of Dallas had partnered with Dallas County to distribute some of the county's allocation of doses at a public mega site, is what we call them, at Fair Park. But we didn't actually have our own vaccine supply to give out at the city. We were just helping the county get theirs distributed. Well, I really just relentlessly, frankly, worked on my friends in Austin and begged them essentially to give us more vaccines and allow the city to do more than we were doing and allow us to directly distribute vaccines ourselves to the public. And the result of that advocacy is that we received 5,000 additional doses on top of what the county had been getting of the Moderna vaccine. And we're going to start giving those out this week through an appointment-based drive-through system at the Kay Bailey Hutchison Convention Center. And I thought it was very important that we make those appointments available between 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. with one weekend day available if we could do that. Because I want to make sure that working folks are able to get access to the vaccine. We're going to be working from the county's registration list. I think this is important for people to understand that we're not creating an obligation for anyone to register again or to register in a different location or in a different system. There is one registration system, and it's the Dallas County registration system. But what we are doing is drawing from that list to help them work it down faster. So what that means is if you have not done so already, or anyone you know or your loved ones haven't done so already, you need to register with the county if you're eligible and you haven't done so. So on that note, I think it's also important that we get people in our underserved communities registered, which is why last week I also approved a plan to open some vaccine registration hubs. Now, if you're following the news, I know you may be aware there's been some political noise around that issue, but here are the facts. The facts is that if the city is going to get involved in anything related to vaccine distribution, we need to make sure we are using data and that we are putting resources where they're needed the most, not where any particular council member may be able to exert influence with the city manager, not for any political reason, not for any partisan political reason. We simply, I don't know how to say this any more emphatically, because it's what keeps me up at night, because I understand just how important this vaccine is to us saving people's lives and getting our livelihoods back, getting our city back on its feet. That is, we have to get this vaccine out as quickly as possible, and we need to get it out and do it in a way that's transparent and where everybody, irrespective of whether they are connected to power, whether they know a politician or are in the right political party or go to the right church or synagogue or whatever that's connected to one of the elected officials at the city or the county, none of that should matter. We're talking about a life-saving vaccine. We cannot afford for this to be politicized in any way, nor can we afford to be yet another example of where people who have connections to power get the resources. Therefore, I have been emphatic about any decisions that the city of Dallas makes when it comes to vaccine access be made without political consideration. And what that basically means is it can't be made by the city manager acting on city council members' instructions, not during a campaign season. It needs to be made by someone who is an employee of the city whose expertise is in emergency response. And we have such a person. His name is Rocky Vaz. He's our city's emergency management coordinator. And that is the person I have tapped under state law to assist in making these decisions so that I'm not the one deciding where a vaccine registration hub goes or who's going to get vaccines in what order, but science and data is going to make those decisions. There are safety issues involved with these decisions. There's potential legal liability issues, and there are operational issues that we have to work through. We can't just do these types of things on a whim. And I can tell you that with nearly 400,000 people and counting and going up every single day registered already in the county system, that anyone who registers is still likely to be waiting for a while before they can get a vaccine until we can see something change on the supply side. Equity is, of course, if you paid attention to anything I've been saying since I was even a candidate for mayor, a major focus of the city. Because of a technical glitch and some miscommunication and mixed messaging, Dallas County, which is our local health authority, who's actually responsible for all aspects of this vaccine rollout, other than the new doses that we just received at the city, Dallas County had some problems getting people who are in underserved zip codes to the joint mega site that we operate at Fair Park. And we've also had to overcome some hesitancy and barriers to access. But ultimately, here's the takeaway. We have to get everyone vaccinated as soon as possible, period. That's the only way we're going to achieve herd immunity. And that's how we're going to emerge from this awful pandemic. And that's where my focus is. That's where it's been since the first day I even heard of the novel coronavirus. And that's where it has to stay. In most circumstances, the city manager is the person in charge of what happens in the city. But in a state of disaster, which we are in by state law and by city ordinance, I'm the city's emergency management director. And I can tell you, it's an incredibly challenging job. And I know that ultimately I'm the one person, in fact, who is directly accountable to the 1.4 million residents of the city. And that these residents judge our performance day in and day out. And they want to know what the mayor is doing to make everything better. And they should. They're the ones whose lives have been affected by the economic restrictions we had to enact and whose families are wondering if we're doing everything we can. I love Dallas. That should be very evident to anyone who knows me and who's known me even before I became mayor. I love the people of this city. I was born in this city. I grew up in this city, and I'm raising my family in this city. So it means everything to me that we get this response right. Thus far, I'm proud of what we've been able to do as a city, although implementation has not always been perfect. We've launched numerous initiatives that I'm very proud of. We've helped tenants and small business owners and nonprofits in numerous ways. We've sheltered homeless residents. We've given greater preference in city contracting to local contractors, meaning based in Dallas or who employ large numbers of Dallas residents to help stimulate our local economy. We've pushed the private sector for help and coordinated numerous relief efforts. And early on, and some of you actually may be on my email list to get the daily updates, but I started requiring data to be reported out from our hospitals about hospital bed availability, ICU bed availability, and ventilator availability. And I've been reporting that out literally every day without missing a day since this thing started. Obviously, I wish we could do more, and I can tell you that we're trying. But as long as we're all working together, I can assure you we will get through this pandemic. And hopefully this time next year, I'll be recapping for you in person our robust economic recovery. So I'm already looking forward to that. And with that, I appreciate the time and allowing me to say a few things to you, a few candid, direct things. And now I'll answer any questions that you guys might have.
Sounds great, Mayor, and your words are very inspiring. Thank you for that. As a resident of Dallas myself, I am very excited to potentially get the vaccine in the near future. But your words are very meaningful. We all have to wait in line and make sure that those those that deserve and need it the most go first. So message is very clear. Thank you. Thank you for those. So maybe you just dive into a couple questions. Is that okay, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, absolutely.
Sounds great. Maybe I'll start off on a personal note. You've got obviously a lot going on. Your family, young family, your career. You are the mayor of the 8th largest city in the country. Mr. Mayor, how are you holding up? How are you kind of holding that balance together?
I tell you what, it is. It's something. It really is. I think being mayor of the 9th largest city in the United States is a challenge under any circumstance. But these are some very unique and challenging times we're living in right now. So let me say this. I appreciate the invitation to be here today, and I appreciate that question actually, because I am a person who is living through this pandemic in some very real ways that I think a lot of people who are listening to this today can relate to. So, for example, my wife Nikki is an incredible woman. She has a job, a full-time job of her own as an executive at a large publicly traded company. And at the same time, she's a mother, and we have 2 young children and one on the way. So a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a pandemic baby on the way. So, they're at home, though. The kids are at home. Because it was so important to me to make sure that I modeled the behavior that I wanted people in the city to exhibit. It was critical to me, to be just really candid with you, that I not get COVID-19 and that my family didn't get COVID-19, because I thought it would deflate people and make people think, wow, here's someone who's telling us all these things we got to do to stay safe, and either those things don't work or he's not doing the things.
Right.
I mean, that's just how people think. And so it would have been much more convenient for us to continue to send our kids to daycare and to DISD. My oldest son's a DISD student in the 1st grade. My youngest is a daycare age kid. It would have been much easier on both of us. A lot less of my Zoom calls would have been interrupted with my kids crashing in, which could happen at any moment. I'm warning you. And my wife would have been able to do her job every day, which she has to do at home as well. It would have been a lot easier if our kids were back at school, and that option was provided by DISD, several months ago. But we didn't take it because we wanted to make sure that we did what we needed to do to model the behavior that we want others to model, so to practice. So we wear masks everywhere we go, and we try not to go very many places. You haven't seen me out at a restaurant in Dallas, dining in person in almost a year. It was just very important. So it's been hard on our family, and that's on top of, as you pointed out, I do have a law practice. I actually talked to a lot of the mayors of the other major cities in the country. We have a kind of a little group where it's almost a support group of the top 10 mayors, and recently, one of the conversations was around, how are different mayors around the country compensated? Someone was asking about, how do what's your salary? Are you allowed to work? Here's the way it basically breaks down in the country. You're either a mayor that has real daily operational authority, and you probably make over $200,000 a year doing that, or you're one of the mayors in the country that does not, and you're expected to work outside of being mayor because you're going to make a lot less than that. And so I'm one of those mayors. So I do have a job. I'm not one of the types of mayors that we've had in the past, maybe that was independently wealthy or semi-retired. And so I do have to work every day as a lawyer and be mayor and be a dad. So it's tough. But I will tell you this, I'd do it again. Even after this pandemic, I can tell you, I'd do it again because I love public service and I love this city. And I really do believe at this moment in history, what this city needs is someone who, like, I was an old fullback in high school. And for those of you who know anything about football, that's a not very glamorous position where you get hit a lot. I think the city needed someone who was not particularly interested in glamour, but was willing to be hit a lot to protect their quarterback or protect their running back. And that's what I'm doing. I'm trying I'm trying to stand up for our city right now, and I'll take the lumps, and we're going to keep moving forward.
Well, Mayor, we're proud to have you as our fullback. So keep doing what you're doing. We're obviously very proud.
So you asked for that analogy, you know?
Right, I did. I walked right into it.
You did.
No, you're doing a great job, and I guess the counsel I would give, that I give to myself and my sons, is take care of your mental health, because this is obviously it's very tough for everybody, but during tough times, leaders lead, and Mayor, that's what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
On that same note of priorities, both personal priorities as well as your professional priorities. In your inaugural speech, you outlined several priorities. Of them, greater civility to the horseshoe, eradicating corruption, workforce development, education, database decision-making, public safety, and a whole slew of others.
Yeah, that was a long speech, apparently.
It was a good speech. I listened to that speech. It was a good speech.
A lot of stuff to outline.
You had a lot of priorities, which is good. Leaders lead. If you're to grade yourself and your council members, now with the onset of the pandemic, kind of walk us through how you assess this last year.
Yeah, that sounds like the classic case for an incomplete. If we're talking about school grading systems, it's an incomplete. I'd say because we're almost halfway through my first term as mayor, but almost my entire first half has been defined by this coronavirus response. I mean, that has really dominated my entire tenure in office, practically, other than maybe the first 6 to 7 months, and that was largely dominated by, as we talked about in my opening remarks, an EF3 tornado and some other issues. So these priorities remain. Everything I talked about in my inauguration speech are very important and critical to the future of the city. But we've had to do things to protect our people from dying from an unprecedented global pandemic. And so, it has changed some of the timing of things, but not, I'd say, the prioritization of things. So let's talk about the first thing you mentioned. And I don't know if I'll be able to hit on every single one of these, because like I said, it was apparently a very long speech. And I outlined a lot of priorities, but
very good priorities.
Civility at the horseshoe. I'll tell you why that's important. I'll draw a distinction between that and a term that I think gets used interchangeably, which is unity. Civility at the horseshoe has to do with how we conduct our business, how we actually transact the business of government. It means when you turn on a Dallas City Council meeting on TV or you read about it in the paper, are they throwing things at each other like they used to and ripping up pieces of paper in each other's faces? And are the meetings an embarrassment to the city, to the point where, like a former mayor described to me once, other cities are using in their marketing materials why you don't want to do business in Dallas because you don't want to deal with that. And they show footage of our council meetings. It was important to me that we not be that city, that we not be a council that is not able to conduct its business efficiently and take care of our people because we're actually talking over each other or doing things or far worse. I think there's no question, if you watch a Dallas City Council meeting, the meetings run incredibly smoothly and they're incredibly efficient, and we are actually getting things done at City Hall, and the civility is extremely, extremely high. That's different than unity. Unity is a product of the people that you've elected to serve. And that's not something that's within my direct control. That's really the responsibility of all of us collectively to produce a council and a mayor that see things the same way. And that's not within any one person's control. So I've been able to control the civility issue, I think, pretty well. I think I run a pretty good meeting, and it comes from, I think, my legislative background. But the unity of the council is something that's a work in progress, and the voters have something to say about that. And the residents of the city have to make a determination as to whether or not they think the council and the mayor are singing from the same hymn book, and if not, which hymn book is the right hymn book. Right. That's one issue. Corruption is a problem. I don't think I need to rehash what people have read in the newspaper about some issues that are going on with that. and ethics reform is a major priority of mine. However, that has not been able to be addressed in this current environment and in the first half of my first term because of what I just told you about.
Right.
That is something that I think is going to have to really be addressed in the second half of my first term. But it's critical because it really is, again, about the image of the city. I can't really emphasize enough how important it is when we're talking about trying to help entities like the ones that are represented in this, meeting today. We're in the business of selling our city, which is the hub of a region, and it becomes just immeasurably harder for all of you to do what you do if we're having to fight against the image of our city being a corrupt city that's hard to do business with, where the elected officials are, incompetent or can't get along and are on the take or whatever. So these are not sort of just, I didn't come upon these priorities whimsically. I understand that underlying a lot of what we're trying to accomplish in the city in terms of attracting businesses and growing our tax base starts with what we can control and what I can control at City Hall. So I'm going to be addressing ethics reform, but it's going to have to be in the near future. We talked in that inaugural about workforce development. We talked in the inaugural about the role of education. I'll just say briefly about those. I've been advancing those conversations with the necessary players at DISD, which is integral with Dallas County Community College District, which is now Dallas College, about the different ways that we're going to be able to do what needs to be done to increase the alignment between our education system and what you all need in the business community, what Jacobs needs, what all the companies that are, Encore and the other companies that are represented here today, there are employees that you need, and our city needs to be able to do its part to partner with Community College District and DISD to make sure you're getting that. And that those conversations are happening. They've been made a lot more difficult by the pandemic. I will tell you, everything has slowed down and become more difficult because of the inability to just get in a room together. And you're trying to get a bunch of moving parts together, but we have regular conversations with our partners on that. And so I assume that there'll be more time today to talk about some more specific programs. But overall, I'd say it's an incomplete because we've been hampered by the pandemic, but we have another over 2 years to go in my first term, and I'm pretty optimistic that we will, by the time it's said and done, have really moved the needle on all of those issues.
Excellent. Mayor, maybe that's a nice pivot point to what I'm sure a lot of the folks in the audience want to hear about too. So you talked about Dallas First and really making Dallas a premier major international metropolitan city. And I think you're well on the way. Prior to the pandemic, it really was a magnet and continues to be a magnet for corporate relocations. Jacobs came here at the end of 2016, and the success that we've had here has been tremendous, a lot of which for not only the things that you've done, but that your predecessors have as well. Can you describe a little bit on how you see that going forward and that continual balance between Dallas First and Dallas continuing to be a major magnet for corporate relocations?
I think that is the most commonly asked question in groups like this, and for good reason, because I do think people really do want to better understand, what my position and what my goal is with respect to the city vis-a-vis its neighbors and what we call the region. And I will tell you, it's somewhat complex, but not really. It's not something that can be very easily, sound bit. But I will tell you, it has at its core this concept: as goes Dallas, so goes the region. Dallas is sort of the reason for the season, right? I mean, that's the point. Like, people are attracted to this area because of what Dallas has to offer. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, though. It gets a little tricky because Now, I have to commend them. I think it's very smart strategically if you're a surrounding community, a surrounding municipality, to leverage the advantages of Dallas by saying, hey, we're close to Dallas, which means you can go to their symphony and you can go to their opera and you can eat at their restaurants and you can, do those things. But you want to have your business here because our infrastructure is newer. And we've been making the necessary investments in our infrastructure, and Dallas has not. Dallas has been underinvesting in its infrastructure by $50 million a year. It's a matter of public record.
Yeah,
that's a tough selling point to overcome if you're Dallas when they're saying that, and they are. It's a tough selling point when they say, you know what? It's go to Dallas on the weekends, right, and have a great meal, but come back to the safety and security of your home out here in our community, because I don't know if you've noticed, but Dallas's violent crime is the highest it's been since 1998. Dallas has record violent crime.
Wow.
I'm the mayor of Dallas. I'm not the mayor of those municipalities. I have to overcome that marketing pitch, right?
Right.
So if you want to know why I'm so obsessed with trying to get my council focused on reducing violent crime, and why I'm so obsessed about getting my police chief focused on violent crime, it's because I know what the other mayors are saying when they're traveling. Well, no one's traveling right now, but when they're virtually traveling the country, making the pitch for why you should come to the region. You should park the assets in our city, not Dallas. But you know what? You're close enough to go to the American Airlines Center and watch a Mavericks game if you want.
Right.
But you can live out here and you can have your business out here. Well, that's all well and good if you're them. But what about if you're Dallas? What does that mean? It means the Jacobs of the world and the people who are here are going to bear an increasingly larger tax bill every single year just to maintain our current level of spending as we lose out on tax base to our surrounding communities. And that's what I'm obsessed with, because if we don't pay attention, we will wake up one day and we will be a donut. We will be a region that has a hollowed out core, devoid of economic activity, and a surrounding area that's just a big sort of sprawling area with some mini communities. And that's not something that, as the mayor of the city of Dallas, I can just stand idly by and watch.
No, well said. Absolutely well said. And it hits home for me personally, Mayor, because when we relocated to Dallas, my wife and I said, hey, we're going to double down, and I live 10 blocks away. So not only am I work here, live here, and I urge others to consider that too. It is a great place. But you talked a little bit about safety, public safety, and new police chief starting this week, this week or next week. And so
February. Yep.
Could you outline, Mayor, some of the goals that you have for the police department and for continuing to drive crime reduction, so we don't have a repeat of this year and get back to the 98 type levels?
Well, you can either view it as one of my virtues or one of my shortcomings, in that I'm a very consistent person. You can call me, if you think it's a good trait, you can call it consistency. If you think it's a bad trait, you can say I'm a broken record. But my expectations and my goals for this police chief are the exact same goals and expectations I had for the last one. And I've been very clear about this since the day I sat down in the chair and started to see the monthly crime numbers going the direction they were going. I wanted to see a plan for violent crime reduction, which astonishingly we did not have under the last police chief. It did not exist. And so I demanded one. And, there was some pushback that I got from some initially, sort of in the chattering political classes and in the media, that, hey, is that really the mayor's role to be demanding things like that? Well, if you're obsessed like I am with trying to, make sure our city thrives, then you do what you can and you see what happens. Fortunately, we got a plan. I was glad that we got a plan. Sadly, however, the plan was not particularly ambitious and it didn't work. The plan that was proposed didn't work. And so what I'm going to want this incoming police chief to do is to have a plan and set an ambitious goal to try to get us back to not record, lows in crime in a year or two, nothing unrealistic, but I don't think it's unrealistic to have as a goal to get us back to where crime was 2 years ago,
right?
Pre-pandemic levels once we get out of this thing. I'm aware of all the different reasons, because my last police chief in the city, which I didn't get to hire, I didn't fire. I didn't get to hire this new one. I can't fire this new one. That's not the way our city works.
Right.
That's the city manager's decision. But I can tell you that this incoming chief, my hope is that he means what he has said up to now. And what he has said up to now, and he hasn't even arrived, but he's been very open, and he's agreed to participate in conversations, which he already has with members of the community. He is going to take violent crime reduction personally, like I do,
right,
and not look to, and what I was saying before is there are many excuses you can point to as to why crime is going up, and violent crime is going up in Dallas. The pandemic is a clear reason that people point to, and there are others. But the reality is the residents of Dallas, myself included, and your families and your businesses, we're not in the business of peddling excuses, or we shouldn't be. We should be in the business of solving problems. When Jacobs doesn't perform for a client, do you think they don't want to sit around for an hour-long discussion about why they shouldn't expect that of you? I mean, they want to hear how you're going to deliver, or they're looking for a new firm to work with. That's how people feel about their city. They're not interested in a bunch of excuses from us. The pandemic has made crime go up in Philadelphia too. I mean, they don't live in Philadelphia. They live in Dallas, and they want the crime to go down in Dallas. And so that's what I wanted, a chief who understood. This chief says he understands that.
Excellent.
This chief says he's going to give us a plan to do that. And I'm going to stand with the chief and support the chief's efforts to do so. And we're going to see how it all works out. But that's what's important to me. And it's also important that we do our part as a community and as non-law enforcement to support that. And that means when it comes to the city council, you can't hamstring the police department by cutting its overtime budget by 25% right in the middle of the violent crime spike, which is what we did in the last budget. I voted against that. A handful of my colleagues voted against it, but not a majority, which is why it happened. Majority of the council thought it was a good idea to cut the police overtime budget by 25% while all this is happening because of political factors that are going on in the country right now. I'm not interested in political movements and making statements. I'm interested in doing our job, and our job is to make sure the police department has the resources they need. And we didn't do that. We simply didn't do that in this last budget. So we got to do our part as non-law enforcement members of government. And then all of you, like the community, the people, have a responsibility in this too. And that comes in the form of supporting the initiatives that were put forward by my task force on safe communities, which are all community-based, non-law enforcement efforts that people can do to help make our communities safer. If we do that, I'm confident that violent crime in this city will fall. I'm confident of that. But we have to do all of that, and we haven't. We just haven't.
Key takeaway there, Mayor, is we have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to hold those that are in high office accountable as well. And that message is clear.
I would say really quickly, I know you probably got a ton of questions, but this stuff is so important. I mean, it's the number one issue.
Hands down.
Accountability. The word you just said it. If we rolled the tape back, you said the word accountability. That is the missing word at City Hall and in city government right now. That is the key word. Accountability. This is not about, hey, everybody just give it the old college try, man. Like, this is about delivering for people. We collect taxes from you all to do a job, and it's not about just giving it the old college try. And that mentality's got to end.
It is literally about life and death.
It is quite literally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, well said. Mayor, you started out your opening remarks talking about the seminal moment in October of 19 with the tornado, and it really had an effect not only for a lot of folks in Dallas, but this chamber, the North Dallas Chamber. In your view, how do you think the city is recovered from the tornado, even before the pandemic?
Yeah. And I mean, if that were the only thing that had happened in my first year and several months of being mayor, it'd be worthy of a chapter in a book, because I still remember that it was incredible. And what's so amazing is the North Dallas Chamber is going to be, indelibly marked in my brain around this event, because I can literally remember being on the ground within hours of the tornado happening, walking y'all's neighborhood and seeing Ken Malcolmson wandering around the streets with a box of stuff, and me be like, Ken, are you looting or are you trying to get what's happening? It was incredible to see the destruction. And it's been a mixed bag, to be frank with you, about the recovery. None of which has been helped by the fact that the federal government, frankly, let us down as a city in helping us with our recovery. The federal government, the last administration, for whatever reason, just did not see fit to designate that EF3 tornado and that amount of destruction that we all saw. If you are in the ambit of the chamber, you saw, I walked those streets and saw what it had done to that Preston area near St. Mark's. And I saw Ken in the street walking around down to Walnut Hill Elementary, all up and down that area, that corridor where the tornado hit. Anyone who could look at that and say, hey, you guys are on your own, it's incredible to me. But we're doing the best we can as a city to get the infrastructure back up and where it needs to be. And people, unfortunately, the way it works in a situation like that, where you have a mix of private property, public property, and right. People have different insurance situations. Some people's insurance companies have been wonderful, I'm sure, to work with and have helped them, and others have not been so helpful. So it's a true mixed bag, but it makes me very sad that the federal government didn't do what they need to do. But we're still helping do what we can to try to get people back on their feet. But like I said, that was one of the earliest memories I have of being mayor and dealing with disaster response, and it was pretty terrible. But we will ultimately get past that too. It's just taking longer than I'd like.
No, I agree. It is inspiring to have public servants like Ken Malcolmson, who is out there helping and your support too. And so we'll continue.
It turns out he was not looting. I just want to make sure everyone's clear about that.
Yeah, let's be clear. There was no looting. He was helping the public. Yeah,
it was Ken's own stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. Mayor, maybe the final question. You mentioned it before, and we do live in a democracy where there are recurring elections. And city elections are coming up on May 1st, with all seats up for election, other than yours. What are your priorities for a new council, which will take place this summer?
Well, I think I'm not really in a position to comment on specific races, but I will tell you this. I really want us to become a city that prides itself on its civic involvement and doesn't view participating in municipal elections as, someone else will take care of it, or, the council, just sort of takes care of itself. We got to get involved.
Absolutely.
People have to participate in this. But, it also is not particularly helpful to have participation that's uninformed by the facts of what's been going on. People have to follow this stuff. And I understand that almost everybody, if not everybody on this call, has a full-time job doing what they do to make a living, take care of their family. But not to get too, Pollyannish here and start talking about Athenian democracy and our classical roots and, Greco-Roman forms of government. But I will say this, we have a tradition that this country is built on, and it trickles down to our municipal government, of it being our responsibility to pay a little attention, enough to make sure we're an informed voter, and then to go and vote. And, it's just not enough to go look at what yard signs up in your neighbor's yard and vote based on that, or, what you heard. You got to pay attention to what's going on, because I can tell you right now, we really are in a situation where it's very obvious that there is a divide on the Dallas City Council, and it's not personality driven. It's not, it's a real divide about what the priorities should be. And I think that people need to weigh in at the ballot box about where they fall on these issues. So I'll tell you where I fall, and I'll tell you where I think that people who should be sitting in those seats, where they should fall. And it's up to you all to educate yourselves about, which side of that line candidates are on and act accordingly. But you need to be a person who prioritizes public safety, particularly in the middle of a violent crime spike. You need to be a person who prioritizes infrastructure investment when we are losing out to our suburban competitors specifically because of crumbling infrastructure. You need to be a person who deeply, truly believes that we should not be taxing our residents at the rates that we're taxing folks at if we can help it, and we can help it. There are things we can do to reduce everyone's tax burden in the city, and that, I would say, is the backbreaker of reasons why people choose to be in our surrounding communities and not here, because the tax rates are also lower. And so we have to have a council, I think, that reflects those values if we want to see those policies enacted. If you want to see a budget that prioritizes public safety, prioritizes infrastructure investment, and prioritizes lowering your taxes, then you can't just leave it to chance who the council people are, because there are people on the council who don't share those priorities. And that information as to who's on which side is hiding from everyone in plain sight in the form of newspaper articles and council meetings and records. So I would encourage everyone to educate themselves on where people are, and during the campaigns, pay attention to what people are saying, and then vote accordingly.
Just taking some notes here, Mayor. And my takeaway: be informed, vote, stay involved, and really care about
That's right.
And no, those are excellent words. Well, Mayor, I think we're at time. Just as another side note, I am also on your distribution for your daily updates. I know those have got to be challenging for you to get on that same cadence, but I've been on, and my team here in Dallas has been on as well. We hang on your notes, and we're very, very appreciative for, back to my be informed, keeping us informed so that we can make a positive difference, just like that you are. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you. I will say one thing about that information. That information we get directly from the hospitals within the city of Dallas, and we pass that information unfiltered, uncurated on to the public. So there's no gamesmanship or politics even in that. We just make sure that everyone knows the facts. So sometimes on social media, you hear people saying, well, if the numbers are one side, oh, well, they must be wanting to protect these folks from criticism, or they want to, we're either, depending on who you ask, we're either trying to exacerbate the way, the extent of the pandemic, or we're trying to downplay it. The facts are, we're just relaying the information, the facts that we are being given by the actual providers and by the people who have this data. It's original data.
The clarity is very, very useful and very helpful. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Wow. Mayor, thank you so much for being here today. We can't thank you enough for continuing the tradition. This is Ken the Looter Malcolmson, and I will finish that anecdote to let you know that the mayor actually, he went through the box that I was carrying. He spent 10 minutes questioning me, and then finally let me go. But besides that, it was a great interaction. So, but we can't thank you enough, Mayor Johnson, for your great leadership in the community. We're really excited about your family right now and what's happening there with the pandemic baby and everything else. We're so pleased to have you leading our city right now. We all wish we could be in person, as you mentioned earlier, at the DoubleTree Hotel, as we've been doing for about the last 10 years. But thank you so much for being here. I also wanted to, and I apologize, I was supposed to be up first this morning, but we had a little bit of a technical glitch. And so I really want to thank Crystal Rotana for stepping in and doing a masterful job of dancing there at the beginning. But I also wanted to explain why we asked Bob Pagrada today to moderate this discussion with the mayor. As part of our continuing tradition to collaborate with all of the major institutions in the city, Bob is the chair-elect of the Dallas Regional Chamber, and we really have a real affinity for the Dallas Regional Chamber and try to partner with them as much as possible. So not only is Jacobs a sponsor of this event, and a major active member of this community. And of course, Bob personally is. We just really wanted to make that connection. So Bob, thank you so much for your involvement. And I have to make one little editorial comment. Mayor Johnson, your response to Bob's last question, and Bob, your summary of that, that is exactly what we're trying to do at the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce. And it's all about engagement. So thank you so much to both of you. I'm going to turn the program over to close to our Chief Operating Officer, Jeff Kittner, who, by the way, went to St. Mark's and not Greenhill.
Oh.
So, Jeff, you're up.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Bob. Mayor, I was bracing myself for a comment about St. Mark's versus Greenhill, especially when you were talking about fullback and all that. So I was prepared for that. Thank you both. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Bob. As a token of our appreciation for you being here today, we'll be making a donation to the North Texas Food Bank in both of your names in honor of you all and of our speakers during this fiscal year. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for participating in this program: Children's Health and the Dallas Business Journal, Atmos, Jacobs, and Encore, AECOM, Comerica Bank, Dannenbaum, Hewitt-Zollers, and Texas Instruments. Also our supporting partners, the Mayor Star Council, Metroplex Mayors Association, and the North Texas Commission. Please mark your calendar for some upcoming programs, including on Friday, we have our annual Energy Forum at noon with Dallas Fed President and CEO Rob Kaplan and Texoga President Todd Staples. That's Friday at noon. And then on Monday, February 8th at 2 p.m., we have the second program in our virtual legislative series. Instead of having a day at the state this year due to COVID, we've shifted to a virtual series. And we had our first program yesterday with Texas Comptroller Glenn Hagar. And we have our second program coming up on Monday, February 8th at 2 p.m. with State Representative John Turner. We'll be offering this series every other Monday at 2 p.m. during the legislative session. So please mark your calendar for those, and we'll put how to register for those in the chat. Otherwise, that's it. We appreciate your engagement and involvement. As the mayor and Bob and Ken have said, be informed, vote, and stay involved. And we're all about that at the chamber. We'll close this speaking portion out and leave it to you all to network, and hope to see you all on Friday for Rob Kaplan and Todd Staples. Thanks very much.